Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and today I'm pleased to introduce Captain Wendy Clark. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, no problem whatsoever. Every day I'm going through social media and the news trying to find things that are of interest in general in the industry. And I came across this small news story about you and the fact that you had an all-female crew and you had just been hired to captain this yacht charter. And I thought it was a really great story. And I wanted to reach out and get in touch with you. And sure, it all happened within about 24 hours that we did get in touch together. And I was shocked and I was very pleased because, in today's day and age, and I think this is my issue, is that we're in 2020 now. And for there to be news stories and for people to be getting excited about an all-female crew, personally, I think that's kind of a little 1965 or 1970. But in yachting, it's the reality today. How does that make you feel?
Um, I'm just excited to be where I'm at. I love working with a female crew, but yeah, the fact that this is newsworthy or something that's so rare that it's becoming this thing that I have no control over. It's I have mixed feelings about it, I think, is the bottom line on that. I'm happy to be a part of it. I love what I do. I didn't get into this business, this industry to, kick out the glass ceiling or change people's minds. I love what I do. And it's nice that I don't work alone as a female. I mean, I've always worked with men, just because that's how the industry is. It's male dominated. And so to get to a point where I get to choose my crew and choose the crew that's best for the position. And in this case, it happens to be my first mate, Shannon Lawson, who's amazing and a captain in her own right. And it happened really organically. We are, as far as I know, the only vessel in the Tampa Bay area that can boast this all-female crew roster. I do have a larger roster than just the females that were mentioned in that article. I do have male deckhands. I have male mates. I don't have a male stew yet, so maybe we'll add that to the list as long as we're tweaking gender norms. But it's been a very wild ride over the past 72 hours.
Well, you know what? Before we get into that, you came to be a captain by sort of a roundabout way. This position that you have now with Sunburst Yacht Charters is new. You were working somewhere else before, but what did you want to be when you were a kid growing up? Was it a captain? Was that where your sights were set?
No, it was never where my sights were set. In fact, I wasn't one of those kids who grew up on, mom and dad's little sailboat or, somebody's little center console. Like that wasn't how I grew up. I love the water. I love being in the water, but I definitely wasn't one of those kids that was always on the water. And so I grew up with two very accomplished parents, and my goal and my path, as far as I'd always seen it, was kind of a career research scientist. I wanted to work on research vessels. I wanted to kind of do some cutting edge climate science data retrieval. And so my path to being a captain and working on the water was actually kind of this side path that happened so that I could acquire skills to work on research vessels, and be a handy extra person on deck, as well as being the science intern or the scientist on board. So I went to a lot of school. I was a career student for a very long time. And kind of the longer I was in academia, I was halfway through a PhD program when I decided I didn't want to sit behind a computer for the rest of my life and crunch data and tweak climate models. And so by the time I had kind of made it to that point in my academic career, I had acquired enough days at sea by working on a private charter yacht in Southern California to take my captain's course and take my test and come out the other side with a 100-ton near coastal. So
wow, but you also have your master's too.
I do, yeah. So I ended up not completing the PhD program, but I had done enough work and jumped through enough hoops that I left UCLA with a master's in atmospheric and ocean science.
So that actually pairs well with being a captain.
It does. I've always kind of loved the environment. And so, I guess where it really kind of boils down is that I tend to just look at the radar feedback and the radar data instead of looking at forecasts or that kind of thing. So it's a little more fun, I think, for me in that respect, because I get to use those skills that I have built over the course of a lifetime in college. But, I get to work on the water and get to experience all that fun weather, especially out here in Florida, firsthand, instead of sitting behind a computer and hoping that my model kind of stands up to what's actually happening in real life.
Well, so when you got your tickets then and became a master or captain, what was your first job?
My first job was actually out here in Tampa. I got my license in Southern California and then moved almost immediately. So I lost all of my networking. My first job out here in Tampa was actually in a sister city, Clearwater. I ran the dolphin excursion boats for the Clearwater Marine Aquarium. So I did that for a couple months, and then unfortunately, just because summer is so hot and rainy out here, hours started to get cut back, because people weren't visiting, and I had to look for a new job. And luckily, there was one much closer to home. And so after, I think 4 or 5 months at the Clearwater Aquarium, I got a job at the Pirate Water Taxi here in downtown Tampa.
And what was the Pirate Water Taxi? What was that? What did that consist of?
It's so it has taxi in the name, but we're not like a strict they. I say we. I was with them. They hold a huge part of my heart. I still talk to a lot of the crew there, but it's a service that runs up and down the Hillsborough River. There's, I think, currently 13 or 14 stops along the Hillsborough River and in downtown Tampa. And we just make loops and we pick people up and we drop them off, up and down. So it's more like the Vaporetto in Venice, Italy, than a true taxi, I guess a water bus. It kind of more describes it because there is a set route to it. We do have pick up and drop off times at certain stops along the Hillsborough River. But that job is tough. You're in the weather 24/7, 7 days a week, holidays, downpours, all of it. But it is a great training ground for skills. You are on and off a dock every 3 to 10 minutes. All you're doing is docking all day long, maneuvering close to docks. It's a great training ground. And it was a great place for me to grow and test my skills, especially as a new captain. Even with a 100-ton ticket, you can drive some pretty big vessels, which was my next job after water taxi. But you never want to walk into an employer's office and be like, well, I have my 100-ton, so put me in charge of your multi-million-dollar, thousands of tons of boat. That's I think that's a really unrealistic ask. So, working the smaller boats and really kind of honing my skills was a really great bridge and a really great way for me to get to know my new hometown out here. So.
Well, I guess just because you have the ticket doesn't make you an actual captain.
Right. There's, that's kind of, I guess that's I guess, kind of a joke amongst the rest of us who are master captains and have the experience and the time on the water and the experiencing managing crews. And, you get these people that come off of other vessels and all their time, not to dig at them at all, but all their time was done in the galley. And they come to you and they're like, look, I have a 110 ticket. It's time for me to be a captain. And they have no idea how the operational side or boat handling side of it works. And so there's a lot of obstacles, I think, in the interview process, where when you come to them and you're like, yes, I'm a 100-ton captain. Yes, I've been on these vessels. Like, here's my CV, here's my experience. And everybody kind of looks at you with somewhere between a little bit and a lot of concern because they don't know whether to trust what's in front of them or not, because they've been burned, in the past.
Yeah, I can imagine for an owner or management company, it is something to be very concerned about, because you are talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars, euros, pounds, whatever. And someone has to have the proper qualifications and experience. It's not just about qualifications, because what we're seeing straight across the board is there's a lot of people coming out with qualifications nowadays that maybe shouldn't have them.
Right. And maybe not shouldn't have them, but maybe should take a step back and think about themselves a little bit before they decide to step into a role that they know in their hearts they're not qualified for.
True. So what took you from the water taxi? Where did you go next?
Well, love the water taxi, but being from Southern California and doing 6.5 years in the Pacific Ocean, I was getting really tired of driving around in 90-minute loops on inland waters. And so I was starting to kind of spread my wings. I went back to school and got an AB in my lifeboatman and all that, just kind of as a way to kind of move forward. Tampa is a port city. We have the Port of Tampa here that's growing, by the minute, it seems like. And I'd made a couple contacts at one of the towing companies. And so I was like, yeah, well, I'll get my AB. Maybe, it's time for a change within the industry in general. I came from yachting. I've done my time in passenger vessel, and, maybe it's not my thing. And, maybe it's time to haul cargo that can't talk back to me. Maybe, I don't know. That's, that's always like the dream, I think, inside when some of us get a little burned out. We're like, maybe I could just work with cargo that is not cranky. That would be great. You just strap it down and you head out to sea and it doesn't talk back. Maybe that's where I'm headed next. But the parent company of Pirate Water Taxi is Yacht Starship, dining cruises and events. And the owner kind of got wind that I was making moves, thinking about kind of heading out and leaving the Starship family. And he came to me one night when my route was over. I was cleaning the boat, and this gentleman just walks on board, and I wasn't, at that point it's 10:30 at night. I'm not thinking it's the owner of our company, and I'm like, I'm sorry, sir, we're closed, without really looking to see who it was. And it was the owner. So immediate backpedal. I'm sorry, sir. Actually, this is your vessel. You can board it whenever you please. Welcome aboard. And so he said, hey, I heard you got your AB. I heard you might have some contacts. Do you have time to meet with me next week? And I was like, yeah, sure. Of course, sir. I'll make time. We'll do it before the route starts. No problem. And I had a really good interview with him, and he offered me the captain position of their flagship dinner yacht, Yacht Starship. And so I took it. And so I got to stay within the Starship family, which was really awesome.
How many souls were you in charge of on that yacht?
So Starship, she's a big girl. She's 182 feet long. And so we had a COI for 600 passengers. When we were doing seated dinners or dinner service, it never got up to 600. But during the summers, they do a series called Rock the Yacht, where different bands come on each weekend. And that's kind of a standing room only event. And we would get near to 600 on some of those events.
A lot and of how was that? I mean, how did that responsibility feel for you?
When I sat down and thought about the responsibility, it got a little heavy. 600 passengers plus all of the support crew, both front of house, back of house, in the galley, the marine crew that I had on board during those times. That's a lot of people to be in charge of their safety, and it's one of those things that just kind of becomes everyday life. You train your crew, you drill your crew, and you know that if for some reason there is an emergency, you know that as a captain, you've done what you've needed to do to train the people to get all of our passengers home safely. And at that point, I don't know. I personally can't hold on to kind of the weight of that every day. I don't know what I would have done if every day I went to work and I was like, I'm in charge of the lives of 600 people. Like, I don't, I'd probably find a different job. But it is something that's there, especially when conditions get a little gross, or, somebody starts a fight on board or something like that. Then you start to think about really the safety of all of those people on board. But the good news is that at that point, you're kind of in crisis mode and you make the decisions, you call the shots. And it's not until afterwards that you kind of sit down and go, oh, that went well, but it could have gone really bad.
I can imagine. Did you find when you were in charge of that many crew that you had anybody that didn't think you had the authority as a female to be their captain?
That's a really good question. I was really lucky in the fact that I'm going to say gentlemen, but some of them are kids, boys even, and I consider them all my ducklings. I love each and every one of them, kind of no matter their age. Some of them were older than me, but I did not come across anybody who had a problem with me being in authority. And I think that comes a little bit from the hiring process. Our HR department there, she did a pretty good job of vetting, and well, your captain's going to be female. Are you okay with that? And I think that if there was a stutter or a back pedal, or I think that she might have given me a heads up, or maybe chosen not to keep them. I don't know what went down in those interviews, but I always know that Lisa had my back. So maybe she was my first line of defense, and I never got to those people. But crew, I don't know if I've been blessed with the crew that I've had, but I have not had authority issues with any of my crew. The surprise of female captain or mislabeling as, oh, are you our head stew tonight, usually came from passengers, not employees. So
that was going to be my next question, is did you ever have anybody surprised that you were their captain as passengers? Because I assume, some of the cruise ships, et cetera, the captain greets the guests as they come on. Was that sort of the modus operandi with you?
Yeah, so the way we ran the dinner cruises was the captain stood at kind of the head of the gangway, kind of the last person that the guests see before they enter the vessel. And I'd stand there alone sometimes, or I'd have other crew members with me, depending on kind of the flow of traffic. The DJ would usually stand next to me kind of towards the end of things, just to kind of, he was done doing his prep work, so he'd come stand by me, and he's this huge ex-Marine. And so as people would come up the gangway, they would look at the two of us, and they would look at DJ Eric and say, oh, are you our captain tonight? And he's like, nope, at this little lady right here, and to see some of the surprise or, and honestly, in some cases, like actual delight, which made me just a little uncomfortable because I don't know how to deal with like people being happy to see me that I don't know. um, that's my own issue though. We'll probably never get over it, but I'll learn how to deal with it. And, so then the response to that is, oh, but you're so little. I come in at maybe 5'2", if I'm wearing shoes and standing up straight. And Eric always had the best response to that, which was, she's not pushing it. Like, just because she's little, it doesn't really have anything to do with the size of the vessel. And so I always appreciated his comebacks because, I'm not allowed to say stuff like that, especially not in professional mode, but it definitely runs through my head. You just smile and say, no, I'm your captain and welcome aboard. And it's a pleasure to meet you. And, you let the big ex-Marine standing next to you say the snarky things because they take it better when the big guy says it, but.
I think any woman would say the same thing anyways. No matter captain or not, it's always nice to have the big snarky guy next to you saying the things you wish you could say.
I wish I could say it, but I'll let Eric Beale say it. Yeah, I'll let him do it.
So what took you then from this vessel now over to Sunburst Yacht Charters?
Unfortunately, it's been this pandemic. Tampa, and Florida in general. I'm sure even in international news, you've seen our situation down here in Florida. But it started, in early March. And I think that the owner of the company kind of saw the writing on the walls. He's got good contacts within the city, and our mayor was on board to really shut down things early and get us on board with kind of the rest of the world, to get us on, kind of restricted socializing. And because Starship is just such a large vessel, there were 2 captains. And so it was our lead captain, Tommy Craig, and myself in charge of that vessel. And, when you have to kind of cut the fat to make sure that the company survives, you don't need 2 captains in charge of a vessel that's no longer running almost every day. 1 captain can do that job. And so because I was not lead captain, I'm the second captain on board. So it made sense that I was the one that got laid off, and kind of a teary goodbye. It was not something that anybody really wanted to do. But, for the good of the company and, longevity wise, decisions have to be made. And so I got cut loose. So I had what I was kind of joking was my COVID-cation. I got some time off. And
I like that.
During that time, I kind of reached out to the contacts that I knew, one of them being one of the gentlemen that owns the management company that is and was doing the maintenance for Vanguard, the vessel that we run for Sunburst Yacht Charters. And so I reached out to him, who I had met in our 200-ton upgrade class. And he said, I'm like, hey, guess what? I have a lot of free time now. Let me know if you need another 200-ton captain to help move some of the larger vessels around, or, just if you just need help in any way that a 200-ton captain can help you. I'm your girl. Let me know. And it all happened really fast. From being laid off to starting again at Sunburst, it was about 4 weeks. I was only off for about a month.
Wow.
Which is definitely not the norm in today's economy and what's going on. So, it was just kind of right place, right time, and our owner, Dale Swope, deciding to make this a full-time charter business right at the beginning of this global pandemic. So he's
I
an
read a
amazing
little bit about
person.
him. He seems like quite a character, actually.
He is. He's a local kid who has come back to just do good for, the place where he grew up in, and loves. He's got great stories just about the history of the place. And I think just kind of this go for it spirit that I hope he doesn't lose. It's really easy to kind of lose your shine, always shelling out money to fix a charter yacht, especially the one, especially a yacht with kind of the interior and kind of the level of luxury that he felt he wanted to like represent him and his company. So we're in dry dock right now, and so it's always like, hey, we need a couple more dollars here. Hey, we need a couple more dollars there. And, I'm hoping we don't wear his shine down, because as soon as we're back in the water, we'll make it worthwhile. But dry docks are hard. They always are. You always find something that's, more money here and more money there. And, yeah.
I don't think there's anybody that has ever said any different. So I'm pretty sure that if he bought a yacht, he knew what he was getting into when he went into it.
He's a smart man. He did a lot of research.
Yeah.
But sometimes even research, when the reality comes and smacks you in the face, sometimes you're like, breathe. We'll get through it. I promise we're going to come out the other side running, so.
Yeah. Well, he just sounds really supportive as well. Like the interview that I read in the newspaper, and online, he seems like he's really supportive of the crew. And something that he said that kind of struck me was, he's a proud supporter of the businesses that nobody thinks will succeed.
Yes. Yeah, he's a cowboy, I guess. He's just decided that, you can't tell me no. And he's got a kind of a proven history that it's going to be okay. Sure people might have said, maybe this isn't a good idea, but he always finds a way to make that idea not just profitable, but it really thrives. So we'll see. Hopefully we can keep him on his winning streak.
Well, he sounds like somebody that would be, really nice to work for. I think there's probably a lot of people out there that are envying you at this moment in time.
Yeah. Yes.
Guaranteed. Tell me.
Stay away. No.
Yeah, I caught him now. Don't touch him. Tell me about the yacht itself.
She is a Sunseeker with her swim platform. She's about 84 feet. I can't do the meter conversion in my head on the fly. I'm sorry.
Neither can I. That's all right. We'll figure it out later. I'll put it down below the two.
Sorry. Born and raised in the U.S., we use standard. I don't agree with it. It's not a good idea. Maybe we'll be metric eventually. I doubt it. That's just the scientist in me hoping. But that's a completely different vlog, I think. Standard versus metric. She's got 4 staterooms, including a master suite and a VIP suite. And the 2 other staterooms are double occupancy. One is a twin bunk room, and the other is just a twin bed room. Both have access to another fully appointed head that you can also access from a hallway. So it can be used for day use. If you don't want to put anybody in the bunk room, you can actually close the door to the hallway, and you have basically a third suite with the double room. So she's got a lot of room inside for passengers. She's not a giant vessel, so the galley is not giant, but she's well appointed. Anything that, you think you're going to need to cook something, we've got it. It just has to kind of be in smaller portions. You're not going to cook for an army in the galley, but it definitely supports the 8+ people that are on board for overnights or anything like that. 8 passengers plus 2 crew. And a nice big hangout lazarette area. And then the Sunseekers, if you're familiar, have at least this model has the big open fly bridge. So there's more seating and gathering area up there. So she's well appointed. There's a lot of room to kind of hang out in, especially for, a vessel that's under 90 feet. She's got space to hang out. It's nice.
Is the interest there for the yacht as far as overnight or week trips? Like I know in Europe, for example, in the Med, when people charter yachts, it's not larger yachts. It's usually for like a week or 2 weeks at a time. Um, do they charter yachts for that long in Tampa?
We have the option for it. It's one of the options on the website. There have been there's been minimal interest as far as I can tell in the longer trips. But while we were running, kind of before we came out for a dry dock, we had either a 4 or an 8 hour cruise Saturday and Sunday. And we usually had about a 4 hour cruise sometime kind of randomly during the week, kind of like for a sunset, or maybe a family had a couple hours to kill. They wanted to go out to one of our local spoil islands and hop in the water and play. So our current kind of bread and butter are the day trips, either the half day or the full day. Uh, I was lucky enough to take the vessel down to one of the local barrier islands, Boca Grande, for an owner's trip. So that was nice. I kind of got to see the world a little bit, which I guess is kind of why the main draw to yachting, right? Get out, see the world, live on a pretty boat, work with fancy people. So it was nice to kind of and get the boat to kind of like stretch her legs a little bit and really make her go. She's fast. Really take advantage of the fun boat that I get to drive now. So
Do you have toys on board?
um, our space is very limited. So we have a tender uh, that seats 4 guests. So it's rated for 5, but crew will drive you around. So 4 guests, and then we have inflatables on board. I'm looking into getting stand-up paddle boards or something like that. But currently just floaties, and what we usually do is tie a line to you and just let you float off the back of the boat so you don't float away. When you're tired, you pull on the line, bring yourself in, we'll give you another beer and send you back out to float off float off behind the vessel.
I think they have some really huge inflatables now, though, like the kind that you could actually have like 8 people on and a little bar in the middle kind of thing.
Yeah, so unfortunately, even when those are deflated, they take up a lot of space.
I can imagine.
So the owner and I are always kind of trying to decide, like, well, we could invest in this, but then I've got to store it somewhere else because there's no place for me to put it on board and then have space for guests, or have room for crew, that kind of stuff. So we'll find what works for us. We're definitely not one of these, big 180-foot luxury yachts that has a garage for sea-doos, that kind of thing.
Or a support vessel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we are self-contained, and I do my best to make sure that we have amenities on board that people are going to find fun. But yeah, we're definitely not the tow the jet skis behind us type of outfit.
But it sounds like you're really enjoying it, though. I mean, you've actually had a really diverse career as being a captain at this stage.
I have, and I feel pretty lucky to have had that kind of experience. Yeah, 6.5 years on a charter yacht in Southern California. Worked my way up from like a no stripes deckhand all the way up to their first mate, and then got my license and unfortunately moved. Sorry, John. I would have stayed to run your boat, I swear. But it's called the Paradiso. It's actually a very nice vessel. She runs out of Newport Beach in Southern California. So if anybody's out there wants to take a look, Paradiso Yacht Charters. But so I learned a lot there. I had 2 really fantastic training captains, both male, kind of obviously in this industry. Captain Bob McCoy and Captain Craig Manicki, and they're awesome captains that also happen to be really good teachers. So I got to learn a lot with my, 6.5 years between the 2 of them. And Then kind of full throttle on small vessels. I had actually never run anything with an outboard until I moved to Florida because I had worked on the yacht. So all of my boat handling, all of my vessel knowledge was for an 84-foot yacht. So into the deep end real quick, learn how to run something that's an outboard and a single screw. And yeah, just, I don't know. I think the fact that I was having fun, I was just always learning something new. You always get to kind of test your skills in some new environment, whether it's the weather or a current or, a boat you've never been on before, just to kind of say, all right, you've got the skills. Now it's just a matter of kind of fine tuning and working with the vessel that you're on. Just know how she moves and how she reacts and how she maneuvers. Each step I made and each job I was at and am at, you just make the conscious decision to learn while you're there. Learn from the people you work with, learn from the captain, learn from the senior captain. Just keep growing and learning. I've got a couple of classes that I should probably sign up for at Sea School just to make sure that the growing and the learning and the understanding the industry continues. But yeah, it's kind of been a wild ride for kind of still being on my first issuance of my ticket. I haven't even done a renewal yet, and I've already upgraded from 100 ton to 200 ton and added an AB and a lifeboatman, and there's always more endorsements to add. So we'll find the time and keep on stacking them up.
Well, and maybe your owner will decide that he wants to buy a bigger yacht next year. Who knows?
I was actually joking with him. I'm like, we need to talk before you get something bigger to make sure that my license still qualifies. Because if you go too big, I don't have enough sea time yet to upgrade from the 200. It's still a new endorsement, so I gotta.
From the sounds of it, you might just be surprised that 6 months from now it's like, oh, by the way,
right.
Here's another one.
Who knows? Yeah, he's become a fan of below deck, so we'll see if he gets a twinkle in his eye and if he wants to increase vessel size. But honestly, for kind of the area that we're in, Vanguard's kind of as big as you really need to go. She's fast enough to get us out into the Gulf in a timely manner, but you start getting, it's really, really shallow out here in the Gulf. So you start getting too big, your draft becomes really restrictive. You can't get close to some of the spoil islands, So I think, at least for now and for this area and these kind of day charters and even overnight charters, she's a good size for the area.
Well, and for now, you're going to get her out of dry dock. You need to run her for a year before you really start looking at anything bigger, right?
Exactly. Hold your horses. Like, let me acquire my sea time. Yeah, and then we'll move on from there. But no, I'm really happy and excited to be where I'm at, both the vessel and the management company and the owner and the owner's family. They're all great people, and I'm in a really good place, So I'm glad to be here.
Well, you know what? We're definitely going to make sure to put the information for the yacht charter company, Sunburst Yacht Charter Company, below if you're interested in Vanguard and having Captain Wendy Clark take you out for a day trip or even a couple of days when you're in Tampa Bay, Florida, Tampa area. And as well, the one thing that I wanted to ask you before I let you go was, for all women coming up that do dream of being a captain, what kind of advice would you give them?
The standard's always work hard, do your job, and unfortunately, it's not very feminist advice, but as females on deck crew, you've got to work harder. You have to be practically impeachable to get to the same place that, you know, the 18-year-old boy child working along with you is at. And it's kind of a yucky thing to have to say, but it's the industry that we're in, and hopefully we can continue to make changes so that, you know, the female deck crew doesn't have to work twice or three times as hard and be perfect in order to make sure that they're moving up the chain of command the way that, you know, their male counterparts do. But I'm honestly, you've got to love it. It's hard work. It can be very long days. It can be really uncomfortable conditions. And so if you don't have a love for it or a passion for it or some part of the industry that really drives you, you're going to make it really hard on yourself. So love what you do, work hard doing it, and don't take shit from the guys is kind of, I guess, my parting advice there. You know, just you don't have to be a guy. You don't have to be one of the guys, but just know that it's going to be a hard path, and you have to have a thick skin. You know, stand up for yourself.
Stand up for yourself.
Stand up for yourself, and do your job, and do what's right, and you'll, you know, some paths are easier than others. You know, some vessels will be way easier to work on than others. But don't give up. But also don't think that if you're in a position where you're miserable, that's the only position you'll ever have.
Right. Sometimes you got to suck it up, Buttercup.
Yes. Yes, you do. Sometimes you do. Yep. You just, you got to smile and, you know, pull that line in and work harder and make your contacts, and hopefully you get to a point where you can start making your own decisions and working on your own vessel. And you just got to know that the goal is there and the opportunities are there. You know, you're not alone. We can all do this.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. You know what? I'd really love to have you back once the boat is out of dry dock and possibly on the water. That'd be kind of cool to have you on board.
We can do that. We'll make that happen if that is what you would like. My last little parting shot here is that I do have male crew. We are not an exclusively female crew. I have a fantastic mate who I was joking with last night. His name is Christian. I was joking, after all this, I'm gonna have to start calling him Christina. But I do have female deck crew. We are the only vessel that I can pull strings and maneuver so that you are sailing with an all-female crew, but that it's not guaranteed, because I do have very talented young gentlemen that do work with me as mates and deckhands. So just they work hard too, and I wanted to give them a shout out.
Well, you need to hire yourself a male interior as well, so we can. I will
work on that. I think I'm going to make it part of my to-do list, and we'll see if I can get a talented male stew on board.
Yeah, next on my list, talented male stew. That is, I think that's a necessity for us.
There we go. Hey, if you're in the Tampa area and you're a male stew, we obviously don't have gender issues here on Vanguard. So.
No. We're just trying to break all the barriers. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I can do all female crew, then maybe I'll just surprise you with a male stew one day. Who knows?
Well, who knows? If you get yourself a male stew, I may actually fly to Florida, even though, no, that won't happen for at least a year. Sorry.
I would say take your time. No rush.
Yeah, maybe in 2021, I will come and visit, and we'll go out on day charter.
Perfect. You're more than welcome. Hit me up anytime.
Nice. Well, Wendy, thank you ever so much for coming on board here at Yachting International Radio. We really enjoyed our time with you, and we wish you all the best of luck once your new vessel gets out of dry dock.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and thank you for making this painless. You know how how much anxiety I had before we started this, so I appreciate it.
It's really just you and me. The rest of them are inconsequential. No, we do appreciate our viewers, but in the case of when we chat, it always makes it, I don't know, I think it's nice to feel like it's just you and I having a coffee, and I think the viewers appreciate that.
I hope so. I did for sure.
Right. Well, once again, this has been Captain Wendy Clark. She is from Sunburst Yacht Charters. You have been listening to another episode of Yacht Crew Blogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I have been your host. Please tune in again for another episode.